We're happy that a little bit of progress has been made over at Mount Baldhead Park. Road construction projects had a really nice meeting this morning with we have Crone Excavating in town. They're working on Taylor Tackin, East West Street, and North Maple Street. Those projects are coming along nicely, which includes the addition of some storm sewer on Tackin and Taylor Street. So while we get excavators or contractors like that in town, we oftentimes don't let them leave without adding some smaller items to their list. A couple small items that we've talked about with Crone is, a lot of the exterior work of the building itself at City Hall is taken care of. There's a lot of landscaping work that needs to be done, but also really to address the drainage off the roof, we need to tie the rain gutters in, the storm drain out front. So if we're doing that, then we might as well tear up the old cracked concrete and do it completely right. So it's a pretty massive project. I think some of it's going to have to be bumped back to spring of 2024. But before next tourism season, it should be looking really awesome at this building. So excited about that. And then one other little small item over at the intersection of Maple and Mason. There's kind of somewhat of a makeshift spillway going down into a street. And so Crone's working right across the street from us, directing them to build a more professional spillway for that area. Anything that we can do to improve our city's stormwater system would be fantastic. Big news for Public Works directly. We did fill the equipment operator / maintenance worker position / Oval Beach manager position / whatever else we can make this poor soul do. But Noah Aramendi is going to be our new beach manager. So he started yesterday. And so we're looking forward to rolling up our sleeves and getting him familiar with the current operation as it exists today and all the safety procedures that need to be falling into place before next season. It's a welcome sight. That's a pretty critical role for us. And I'll leave it at that.
Any questions for Mr. Herbert?
It takes time, when you open up the sluice gate, it takes quite a long time for the ground saturation to evaporate away. So it is a benefit and continues to be a benefit as long as the soil or water isn't standing there. It's getting more dry. So that's going to be critical for us to end with the best finished product that we can once they're done. Which I think the construction. Taylor Tackin, East West, and North Maple, all that's supposed to be done like early to mid-November. So bear with us. Help them with.
I will mention there's a side benefit with that water being drawn down. If you can get that soil to hard pan, you're actually going to kill out a lot of invasive species. So if we can get boots on, so it's so it's actually a strategy that government uses to kill invasive species is to do a drawdown of the water. So some of the species will die on their own, but if it does hard pan where you actually get boots on the ground, then this is a great opportunity to go out there and just help with that. They're still growing. So as long as you have whatever the process is where they assimilate water and nutrients, and I don't think either of us are going to know the name of that process, but as long as it's green, and it's not dying out, then it would still be effective. But we have to be very selective on making sure that we're treating invasives rather than just the native species as well. So, yeah. So anyways, the hard pan effect is a good thing for invasives.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you. We'll move on to our study group updates. We have invasive species, and I believe Member Rope has comments for us on that. So last Monday, the 18th, we had a group of 16 eighth graders to so this is part of the group fundraiser for time ever and this is about $1 more for so they are doing their further out there. All of this for there and then beautiful weather and those kids they pulled about 100 companies that prior and then also had there as well as the resident and I would be remiss if I not every group. So one thing running around pulling vines as well. That was awesome. Thought that city council showed up, Darn was there. We were there and then really that was great. Rotary gave a grant to help out with Allegheny Conservation District group the whole thing. We made sure that we to their standards. The council, which is part of and on Vanity, part of the Historical Society about that. So that was pretty awesome. And of course, it was a really big group of people that great. So maybe the six about it. So, you know, in talking to Scott, there is a lot of we did a lot. I mean, that's actually the thing about that many kids, and we had the parent leaders that were out there. So it was really well. But I know. And the feedback from the kids was great, and they were like, I've been here once. And I like the suggestion of even going to the state park and Salt Mansion. I mean, it's not the city, but we are a community, and we need to have that mindset. In my opinion, have the mindset of how we operate as a community. We don't live on the island. So that's wonderful. Yeah, thank you. Any questions from everyone?
Yeah. Did you mention the competition that you had?
Yes. Okay, so there's a competition to find the longest root phase. So those you did competition, right? I think you mentioned that. So if you're not familiar, Asian Bear Statement right on root, you know that you're there. So my group that was out had basically 12 right? So 12 teams. And then my husband and I want to say Andy Diaz, who's being student at high school, 31 and the parents verified. I mean, they were going to think about the patient because that was unended. So they kept going into and we have measuring tape. Amazing. Yeah. Anyway, very cool. That's nasty. Awesome. I love it. Yeah. Fantastic. Thank you. Airport property. I can take this one. You want to?
Oh, no. Just back to invasive.
I'm sorry.
Real quickly. The word that I could not find in my brain is assimilation. Yeah. So it just means that they're still pulling nutrients out of the ground. They're alive. Basically, that's what that means. Assimilation. And then also just a mention of the hemlock woolly adelgid treatment. I know, which was recently completed. I think they're done. I haven't seen their trucks around. Oh, it's a lot of work.
Oh, no.
Well, it's tough to stomp around those dunes. So, that was like a $42,000 project that city invested in. So they've
We're
started
gonna
their
get our
work.
money's worth, aren't we?
Yeah, they don't like that. It's when they see Scott, he gets sad. So anyways, that work's begun. So that was a major investment by the city.
It was. Thank
Wanna
you.
mention
I'm
that.
glad that it's underway. Thank you. Airport property, the update on this is that, we've gotten through the engineering and the ODC studies. The next step is that I've gotten ahead of my skis. I wanted to actually have a motion today to, groom the trails, to legitimize the trails. I've been told to back off by our city manager, who does keep me out of trouble, and I will listen to his sage counsel on this. But apparently, we need to have a SOAR analysis, which makes sense. We've contracted with ODC, and they're going to do, it'll be basically public input on the SOAR analysis, strengths, opportunities,
Oh, aspiration.
and
Results.
results.
Oh,
Yes, and so ideally, we'd like to have a session, we're gonna have to pull this together, so we're kind of talking about this on the fly, to have something before the next meeting, so we don't delay it too much. We only meet once a month. I'd like to have a public meeting before the next meeting, so at the next meeting, we can have a motion to take to council. The next step would be discussing that grooming the trails, or legitimizing the trails with existing vendors. So that's the update that I have for airport property. Unless you have anything to add.
Madam Chair, that's great. And I think one of the outcomes, as this group has discussed, is that one of the opportunities in the SOAR is to groom the trails, low-hanging fruit. And so I think once you get that opportunity for the community to support that, once that goes in front of council, I think you're gonna be in a stronger position to allow the council to expend funds to do that.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Any other questions? Blue Star Multimodal, yeah. Member, Cindy, anything for us?
Well, we continue to the design of the route. We had our last meeting back. Brian, frankly, I was a little underwhelmed maybe with the progress of the last week. So we're just going to kind of tag team with the engineers with the mountain based. Second part to make sure that we are active with is they were supposed to send out, they haven't even sent it. So that's why. So then they're supposed to send us a monthly progress report. The last meeting had to July. So it's sort of a week. I kind of felt a little bit of thank you to Ryan. Give him a nudge here, and but that had not gotten sent shortly after that. They did send something, which was, a very, very, I would say, big milestone. So I think Ryan to give him a nudge.
Yeah, we'll see exactly what's in the contract as far as deliverables, and well, Nancy's doing a great job, bird dogging them, so that's appreciated. And then, also in front of the Parks and this group here, coming soon will be the discussion on the couple of the design elements for the Blue Star Trail, pallet sign. So they're actually working on a couple of options. I think we asked for 3 different options on exactly what needs to happen with that pallet sign. They are acutely aware of the sensitivities with that pallet sign. And so they're talking about shifting it a couple feet in one direction. I'm like, okay, even that, just give us some options and we'll review it. But I do think there's some opportunities to actually enhance that area with the landscape. And one of the pie in the sky ideas is actually to have the Blue Star Trail go underneath the pallet sign. So they're looking at the height standards. So I don't know what the tallest bike and human height standard there would be for a multimodal path, but
Then the other challenge is that there's always, not always, but there's 50% and there's a banner that's hanging under the pallet sign, right?
then we can shift.
We
yeah,
can shift banner places.
figure that stuff out. So they're gonna shift. Yeah, and so yeah, or another location entirely that's visible, for the banners. So anyways, they're gonna present some options with that. The other item that this group will be working on is what we call the vertical elements of the bridge. So if you can envision this, the little barrier that's in Douglas, they have, kind of quasi yellow vertical things to demarc and add visibility to where that buffer is between the multimodal path and the street. I think the city of Saugatuck is gonna want to be a little more fancy with that, but without taking away any of the, viewscapes of the water. So that's gonna be another touch point, another point of sensitivity. And then also you have the vegetation near the bridge from Lake Street to the bridge, which has to be removed, but then needs to be replaced. Again, actually could be a more dense vegetation to help out the condos, pointing towards the condos. And as far as the visual barrier, and so those are the things that are gonna come in front of this group shortly.
Oh, I think that one thing we could talk about safety at the intersection of, like, what else? There isn't any safety. My point. And it will only get worse. Cyclists, if they can get, drivers, who are only going to make their right turn on only the left, and, it's not good. So we did even raise the issue of traffic lights. And we have more time now to everything's done. Do you think it's possible to bring the traffic light into the council and so what would you?
I would be curious to know who has jurisdiction over whether we can have a traffic light there, and I've always been told, is it the cities only? I say let's bring it to the council, I'm putting a traffic light.
So
We got one vote now.
Such a dangerous,
It's a very dangerous intersection.
location.
It's easy to overlook it in times like this, but in the summertime, right?
Yeah.
There's people coming, yeah, so.
And then that
if it-
bike route just ends. It's like, coming from Douglas, it's like they have nowhere to go.
So if
It's
it's,
just-
if that's fully on the
it's
city street,
awful.
so it would be entirely up to city council to decide on the policy for having a traffic light?
In cooperation with the Allegheny County Road Commission. but-
Okay,
But the city is the driver on that, no pun intended.
absolutely.
so what,
So that's gonna happen automatically with the trail design. Automatically, meaning like that design element's gonna be triggered when we get to that intersection and start talking about the Palestine and that crossway, just like, so that's my answer to that. That's
The
gonna happen.
council will have to approve what comes out of that, and that should be part of the discussion is contract as to what the design.
To get across that road.
Okay,
That's gonna
and
happen.
What kind of time frame is that?
So, I mean, just,
Is it something doable for next season?
so beginning, so that's, no.
The design
It would be
concept.
my response.
Well, I guess.
Thanks for the honesty.
Here's a question that I have though. Why can't we do a traffic light independent of Blue Star Trail?
Why does it have to be part of the design?
Doesn't have to be, but I just don't see it getting done by next year, just knowing all the elements that are involved. Hey, but it can, if that's like the focus of the council.
The
and
sooner we bring it
the
forward, the
thing.
sooner it'll get done, so let's.
the other point, remember, when they were trying to figure out the design, our fire chief had the problem with, if he got rid of the lane, but the option was to put the traffic light in. And then he would have control over that. because
Yeah.
that's-
Yeah.
but it's kind of, and that thing just kind of the whole
Yeah.
time. So we are going to do traffic light. What a time frame.
Yeah, beginning with the end in mind, the construction date is 2025. And although that seems pretty far off, and the good news is with the traffic light that we've already had traffic counts conducted and the traffic light is justified based on the previous results. And so now it's just a political issue, one, as part of the design. We're gonna get there pretty quick to have this discussion again, and then it's gonna be a little political. But the engineering standards are there. And then you have the design and then installation and then bids. And then, so that's what, when I say like, can we get this done next year? I say no. And that's the reason, just knowing that those steps are gonna take a while. So maybe just as part of this Blue Star Trail. I can see-
2025.
Yeah, I can see
Yeah.
this happening. And then also just to mention,
Well,
very similar to the roundabout that's being, that is confirmed for Old Allegan. the Blue Star Trail is being designed around that. It's kind of the same principle, right? They're making accommodations to kind of work around that roundabout that's gonna be installed, so.
Great, thank you.
Well, I did do the bike ride, is it the,
The Lakeshore Harvest Ride?
yes, a beautiful ride, but I had a lot of, people asked a lot of questions about this, and I didn't really know the answers, and they said when they go to the website, it doesn't say much about the timetable and all this and that,
Well,
so,
partly,
because we don't have one?
well, right. we'll-
Yeah. Okay, yeah,
But
so if we
put-
can
put
get,
Something out there saying that we don't construction won't start until 2025.
that'd be,
So
that'd be
that's a good
That's
point.
a really
for the
good idea.
bikers, yeah, but it was a beautiful ride. I always loved doing it, so.
Huh.
You did it?
Oh, good. We did the short route.
Okay.
We didn't do all
Well.
55, the 7 and 9.
It was a wonder. It's always a great ride.
Okay, thank you. So with that, we will move on to what I know is a robust discussion on the Village Square and Playground. Member DeYoung, Member Roach.
Yeah, so we are excited to finally bring this here. We have something that we want to move ahead and actually make some recommendations to council. But we want you to know that we did our research first, so we have a 1.5-minute video about doing our research. That's good. We can go to the next slide.
That was Kelly doing the research.
Yes. So what our goals are today, just to give you an advanced organizer, we want to recommend decommissioning of the current playground. We all know about the ODC report and that, it should be decommissioned. So, we will recommend that that happens hopefully, in October. And then choose a new playground design and proceed to recommend that to city council for purchase. Because if we don't move now, we miss out on some opportunities for grants, but also on the timeline for it to be manufactured and installed. So that's where we're going.
Okay, so you guys saw this slide last time, but we'll just do a quick recap. So we are keeping the playground at the existing location. We're gonna maximize the existing footprint. So when you see that little kind of V or triangle at the top, that will be kicked out a little bit. However, all of the trees will stay without leaving them. So we're just extending it out so that we can use all that space there. We're broadening the age range from 2 to 12. Right now, it's our playground, existing playground is really just for little kids. So we're hoping to have families of all ages be able to spend some time there. We're looking to include some unique modern features. Kids are playing a little bit differently now with the rope structures and such, so we're looking to add those in. These are per DPW. We are using long-lasting materials that don't need much upkeep, so we don't want to add any more to Scott's and his team's plate. And then I mentioned the trees. So originally we talked about we really wanted to do a theme, and because of Saugatuck's background with nature, people come here to be outside, art, music, and then our maritime history. We sort of pursued those themes throughout, and we will touch on our themes in a little bit on another slide. And then we're also requesting that we have a solar flashing walk put in so that people that need to access the restrooms can do so in a safe manner. Okay, so the vendor designer, so we really, spent a lot of time on this. And we started out with Outdoor Discovery. We absolutely love them. Unfortunately, there's some shortcomings to working with them, which is the wood structures are short-term as far as, how long they last. They also need some upkeep. And they also are super busy with doing, their naturescapes right now. And so because of the timeline that we have, we really don't have a chance to work with them for this particular project. Glenna found a company called Adventure World, that she had seen at some vacation spots, and in talking with some of the other vendors, we realized that from a municipality standpoint, they really aren't a compliant playground. So that put us with, getting bids from both Sinclair, and Ventura, which is landscape structures, and that is what, Glenna will go through in just a second. They're both Michigan-based companies, and then, Sinclair is the one that worked with, Douglas for Beery Field and Schultz Park, so we know exactly what we're getting there. The other one had a huge contract with the West Iowa Schools, and that's the one that I mentioned last time that I went to all 7 of their playgrounds in one day, which was really fun. And then we just obviously done a lot of research, which you saw in the video.
Yep. So, what we wanted to do here was take, renderings that we got from Sinclair on the left and Ventura on the right and sort of compare similar, views of them. As you'll see, this is option 11 from Sinclair. I think when we spoke to you last month, we showed you option 4, and we're hoping to get the next rendering and then call a special meeting. Well, it turned into 7 more, and it takes a while to go back and forth and really get it fine-tuned, the things you want in there. This is roughly the aerial view of each. The Ventura on the right, I don't think utilizes the space as well, but we really like their structures and what they look like, but they even had to get rid of the swing set to make that stuff fit. And while I tried to get rid of the swing set early on, I was convinced that you cannot get rid of swing sets from the playground area. Because kids love them so much, and they will wonder where they are. So you can see on the left, that's still there. Next. This is more of a westward view. So when you're coming off from Butler, keeping that ramp there, you know how it's built up right at the front, and then the ramp goes right off from that, and the kids can go into that first tower. That's still there. That's actually still there in the Ventura. They just didn't have as nice of a rendering of it, but that block there is kind of that base element. As you can see, it will be wheelchair accessible, and there's actually 3 towers in that left drawing from Sinclair. One of them's kind of hidden back there, but somebody in a wheelchair can actually take that ramp, get in the first structure, and go to the second structure, and still have.
Can they only do that in the Sinclair? Can they do it in the Ventura too?
I'm not sure they can do it in the
I
Ventura.
think they can get to the main structure, and
Mhm.
that's it. Yep.
And then I believe they can also get in that net structure, like,
Can.
um,
Yeah, so if you see on the left-hand side of that large net structure,
Mhm.
there's a black belt, so that's actually a transfer. So you could take someone who was in a wheelchair and transfer them onto that, and then depending on their level of ability and strength, they can either move up into the middle or they can just be in the center of the activity, so they can feel a part of things. So we really tried to make this as universally accessible as possible. And I think I mentioned last time, it's incredibly expensive to make the entire thing that way. We looked at the poured in place surface, which is that spongy, rubbery surface. That just for this small footprint is $170,000. So that was cost prohibitive for us. So we did what we could to make it as universally accessible as possible. And one thing that Sinclair did say is that even just us keeping that ramp, that's why we chose to do that, makes it so much more accessible than most places that even spend more on the accessibility, because they put everything as accessible, but then they don't realize like they have to get over a curb to even get there in the first place. And so there's actually panels built into the first 2 towers where if you were in a wheelchair or didn't have the ability to move yet, there's still a ton of things to be able to play with and be a part of. So those were things we kept in mind.
Next. This is the northward view, so as you're standing there sort of looking for the post office. I don't know that there's a whole lot more to say about that. I think we have 3 slides incorporated into the Sinclair, and we have 2, maybe 3 in the Ventura. But we were able to get taller slides, because of the rope structure and the slide coming off on that, and this Sinclair.
That's why it looks awesome.
Yeah, yeah. And they also, we asked them to incorporate double slides, and you can sort of see that in one in the front on Ventura, because kids love racing down there at the same time. Okay, next one, southward view, so more standing on the post office side, looking the other way. You can see the ramps and
Are these two about the same cost factor?
we're gonna get to that.
Okay.
Well, the thing.
Something, yeah, there's
the-
something.
That we like about the Sinclair one, so the one on the left is kids love the Ninja Warrior courses now. So if you see from the ramp extending out to that first tower, there is a circular structure that goes all the way around that is monkey bars and climbing ropes, and they can go over top of that kind of that black belted structure, and it takes them all the way to the next tower. So that was really important because it's like sort of a free flow versus a linear, and that's how the kids are playing more so now. Same thing with the rope structure. Most schools are now incorporating those because of the hand-eye coordination and motor skills that it builds. And there's also, that helps us put a larger age range in. So the older kids love to sit up in that structure and just kind of hang out and talk. So that is something for them as well.
Yeah, it took us a while to convince them, if you could just go back one, to get that sort of Ninja Warrior, that's our term for it, not
Yeah,
theirs.
no.
You can't go back, incorporated into it, but it's really helpful for arm strength, balance, flexibility, all those things that we wanted to be sure made their way in here. See, these are more just drawing renderings from above, so you can see, what the footprint looks like. You can see both of them instead of having at the top that point that looked like a rooftop, where the land goes out. That's where we squared it off. So both of them are squared off. Again, there was just grass in that area, so not infringing on any trees or anything. You can see in the Sinclair option, we had, and Kelly can talk about this in the next slide, but we were able to bump out on the left side in the top right corner, little spaces that included some things that go with our theme. So if we can go to the next slide.
Yeah, the other thing I'd say about that one too is all of those red lines around that aerial view are super important because those are all of the safety allowances that are necessary. So they've gone through all of that with the measurements that we have in the current footprint so that all of this is allowable within that space. And then, so you guys, we've gone back and forth so many times about what we want the theme to be. And then when in the middle drawing was sort of that lumbered look, it sort of came to me that I was like, well, we could really pull in the Singapore history here. And one of the really cool things about Douglas Elementary is when the kids are in second grade, they study the history of Saugatuck. And for their last field trip of the year, they go on the dune rides and then they come and see the structures that were kept and brought away as the town was being buried by sand, which is this building is my understanding. And then there's two more up the street. So they go around and see all of those things. And so I thought that was a really cool thing for us to sort of bring our history alive and pull that theme through for what we're hoping will be all of Village Square. And so what you're going to see is aspects of that history. So, obviously lumber and logging, indigenous background with the canoe. And then we found this gorgeous little dune buggy that the kids can pretend to drive that's in the front of that structure. We have these very cool, we wanted to do a lot more of those concrete resin structures. So that log that you see that the kids can play hide and seek and crawl into the middle of, those end up being incredibly expensive. And so we were very measured about where we use those to make sure that it had impact on the design and was really fun and pulled the theme through, but we're cognizant of the budget. So
The thing on the right, the green bars, that's actually called a crow's nest.
Oh, cute. Fun.
Yep.
And that's
Love
the one
that.
that's ADA compliant too. So a wheelchair can actually get in under that and you can play with all of those pieces right there. And then the other thing being an art and music town is in the lower structure, we, on the outskirts of those drawings, we have these musical instruments that the kids can play that are in sort of a natural motif. And those, again, are on the outskirts so that kids that can't necessarily be in the middle or don't want to be have some points of interest there as well. So we're super excited about this, that this really spoke to us. We'd love to continue to carry this through with maybe a mural on the other side of Village Square.
And then we'd love to work with the Saugatuck Douglas Historical Society to have, some background on Singapore and what it means to our town, on site there as well, so that locals and visitors can learn about that.
I love that idea with it. I mean, even my cousins coming to visit this summer and that they took the dune ride and they're like, I didn't realize there was a whole town. I mean, that it's a fascinating story. And just to have a big placard out there, or
Yeah.
whatever, to discuss it. So many people don't know it, and I think it's a wonderful story, and what a great tie-in. I think.
Yeah, I
it's-
think that's a great idea to put the information too. Yeah.
I
So it
think
makes
it will be a
sense.
tourist draw with.
Yeah,
uh,
oh,
y-
absolutely.
You know,
yeah.
we have to go see this cool playground that's more than just a playground.
Right.
Yeah, that'd
That
be
was our
very
goal.
cool.
Tie into
Yeah.
the community
Do they
history.
have, like, could we work with the Historical Society? Now they're putting those signs up.
Mhm, That's what we want.
That's
Do
what we
we,
hope. We haven't,
do,
we've not
is there a
reached out to them yet.
Singapore sign up somewhere? Is it down? I mean, it'd be kind of fun to do something like that, though. Yeah.
Oh, it's
great.
by the old Demers, shanty, fishing shanty down
Oh.
there, little boats. You can see a bunch of them there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, those.
Yeah, that'd be
Have
fun.
the same look throughout town.
How
Yeah,
about
it'd be
that?
really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Next slide. Were you done with that one?
Yep.
Here you go, Ruth.
Oh,
Sinclair
I'm gonna
is the
say
one,
that.
you know, that we've been showing you on the left, Ventura on the right. The equipment costs were roughly the same,
Yeah.
although, I think, yeah, there was more equipment, I think, with Sinclair, actually. Although, but Ventura had bigger structure. The freight, quite a difference there, actually. The install and supervision for the community build, there are pieces that are just too large. They're gonna need to get a crane that comes in and put them in. So, there was a part of the budget that's for their install. But there's a part of the budget that's also for a community build, which we thought was genius and happened over in Douglas when they put theirs in. And Sinclair actually loves that idea, and they talk about building community and doing that. And we asked, well, is there actually a savings also that goes along with that? So they figured it out for us, and we see that this morning, there's a savings of a little over $35,000 for this hybrid, community build installation.
And they did the similar thing, and that was Sinclair at Beery Field, that where they, so absolutely.
Yes.
You just can launch off of that.
Yep,
That's
yeah, and I
fantastic.
was a part of that, and
Yeah.
they have it down. So, it was. Well, yeah, so they thought, we asked them yesterday when we did a call with them, so they thought this would be a 2 to 3 day as far as the community build. But then their folks would be here longer because that rope structure is pretty technical to put up. Because that is like airplane grade, so they get that really tight. And they go back through and they tighten every nut and bolt once we're done, just in case, 'cause they're very
They
nervous.
do like a yearly maintenance on it then? Will they come back and do that or?
That's
is that-
not part of
is
the
that you?
contract, I guess.
I don't know. I'll have to
That's
double
you?
check that.
Okay.
The other part, Scott, is that, they're not responsible for demolition, but I know you're excited to do it. As are some of us, yes.
Yeah.
And then just kind of the, cleaning up the site and prepping it.
Can any of the old stuff be used to another community or is it all pretty much gone?
I don't
Just
think it can
saying,
be used.
it's
It's
just
in
like
bad
if we can
shape.
reuse any of that or not.
One of the big messages that needs to go to council is that this playground needs to be decommissioned regardless of what the next step is, that it's not in
It's not,
a
right.
place that it needs to be for us to offer it.
For your question, one thing that I would say is there's 5 existing benches that are newer there and we expect to reutilize.
Oh, good.
those. So don't smash.
Sorry, Scott.
They'll just be in different locations, but
Got it.
yeah, we'll use those.
Then for the, what lays down, we'll go with wood fiber again, just because that's the least expensive. If you get some of the other, I forget what they call it.
The port in
play,
place, yeah.
It was like $80,000.
No, it was
Oh,
170.
It was 170.
Yeah, I looked at
just
that
for
number
that.
again.
Okay. So,
Yeah.
So the
Now-
Ventura is just cheaper because it's a shorter or smaller.
yeah, I'm not quite
Area.
sure why. And they talked about having, dumping some and having volunteers and moving it over, but
Got
there's
it.
really no place to dump it. So this is somehow they
Spray
spray
it.
it in.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, Scott, if this has anything that your group wants to do, obviously, but they seem to say like it was a ton that they need to refill with once everything's leveled out. And they didn't seem to think that it's something that we want to mess with, but we're open.
So you can see the subtotals there. There is a potential for, discounts from Ventura of about 31,000, and I think it has something to do that it doesn't go out for bid or something, and they.
Exciting.
And then with, Sinclair, it's actually Game Time that they represent, is giving a grant through Sinclair. And for us, it would be half the price of the main structure, so not the little structures around. And that comes to almost $113,000. So that is really sweet. And if we can get that, it will bring the cost down to the 336. Which now makes quite a bit of difference, between the two. So it's qualified for that. Did you want to say anything else? To qualify for that, we have to move quickly though, because if you go to the next slide, we have to complete an application form and it must be received no later than October 27th. But it can't just be, oh, we kind of would like to do this. We have to have approval that it's ready to go. So here's one that we want, and then they will put the grant toward it. So the timeline all of a sudden has become short, which we knew. That's why we were working on this so hard. Once we order it, it will ship in 8 to 12 weeks from the date of order. So if we can get that placed in November, it will be here for an April install, we hope. To qualify for that matching grant, also the project has to be approved, and it must, a check must accompany the order in about 266,000. And that's just for the equipment alone, because they custom make it back at Game Time. And then there would be a balance of that 70,000 or so due later, which is really for the install labor and wood fibers. But we're pretty confident that we can get the grant, as long as it's approved and we move on it. So, next slide, please. You saw this last time. We presented, and asked for your feedback at the last PPW meeting. Remember, Nancy, you said, let's just go for it. So we did that, but still keeping some things in mind, you know, to keep the cost down and where there were opportunities. We thought we would receive the updated quotes and rendering within a couple of days. Well, you know, as we said, that we kept having to tweak and didn't get the last one until 8 o'clock this morning when I put it in. So we're here today, asking for recommendations to send one of these to the city council, which we could hope happen at the next workshop next week. And then we would get their approval, hopefully. So we would qualify for the grant. And then Scott can start playing with knocking the stuff down that's currently there.
Do we have a budget? I mean, is there something in the budget for this project?
Not this much money.
So there's not, there's not this much, but I will say that in the previous tri-community parks and rec plan, that the previous council, and this was done well over 5 years ago, budgeted $175,000. We do have money in parks, $500,000 set aside for our parks and our park budget, in our budget. In the last 5-year plan, they estimated about $175,000 to redo the playground is long overdue for a refresh, obviously. And that $175,000 would have been plenty of money before COVID. We don't live in that world anymore. This has been very well researched by these guys, and there's a lot of depth of knowledge there between what happened at Beery Field and all of that Beery Park. This is what it's going to cost to build a playground. So from my perspective, this is what it costs. The playground needs to be decommissioned. We've looked into it with 4 different vendors and really done our homework, and with the additional depth of experience that we've had with Douglas. And I think it's time to move on it.
Yeah,
That's my view.
Well, I wouldn't argue with that.
Yeah, for frame of reference, what Douglas all in will be for the 2 parks, which obviously Beery is much smaller, they're over $400,000. Yeah, and still raising, and we have $200,000 to raise.
I mean, we had talked about trying to, you know, raise money from.
To be clear, we are open to grants and gifts. The other thing is, and I commend the the women, I was gonna say folks, but the women who went and did the fundraising for Douglas, I don't think that every time we have to do something for our city, we pass a hat. We have, we receive tax money and people want something for their taxes. We have the money set aside. We have the money to do this. We have a playground that is in deep need of being completely redone. And we have a responsibility, in my view, to take care of it.
At the last meeting, did you guys approve the Pinchero either design or
Oh, no.
did you?
We just said that we were gonna proceed with
Got
both
it.
and,
Okay.
and get something that we were both satisfied
Got
with.
it.
It just looks like Sinclair really took it to the next
Yeah.
level
Oh,
in
they
so
did.
many ways.
Kind of like the looks of the other one,
I know.
but I like what Sinclair offers. So it's
Same.
kind of like a
Responsiveness, they love Saugatuck, their
Sinclair.
owners come down here
Sinclair,
and eat
deep
all the
roots,
time.
deep roots here, yeah.
Yeah, they really want to.
With Holland and with Beery and yeah, they're
Okay,
very
that's
deep
nice.
roots and very committed to the community and they've been
They've
really
been
doing the most.
incredibly responsive
responsive.
every time we need something, whereas the other one has not been so much.
Mhm.
But that's what's so hard about this, Ruth, is that I actually love the look of the other one.
I do too.
But I love everything that we're getting with
Same here.
Sinclair. So in the end, we don't have an endless budget. We actually were pretty
Right.
conscious of funding when we did this, even though it is a big number. And so I think, in a perfect world, we'd have it
Yeah.
all, but we need to make.
It just
decisions.
seems like if you go with a theme, that Pinchero hits the theme better than
No, Sinclair hits
Sinclair.
the theme better.
physically by the looks of it and stuff like that. I don't think so.
You like Pinchero better than Sinclair?
I like the looks of Pinchero
Oh.
better. I'm not saying that that's the one we should go with. I'm
Yeah.
just saying that seems.
No,
like
I
it-
agree. I love those little slabs.
Yeah, yeah, that's
sides,
just pretty
and
cool.
Unfortunately.
No, I'm
southeast
okay with
facing,
Sinclair. I think it's
then,
cool.
No, I.
Yeah.
And
I get
$100,000
you. I
difference
agree
is
both
not
of you.
chump change.
$100,000.
Yeah,
It seems
it's
like they're more
25%.
response or, if they answer quicker and stuff, makes.
And
a
it actually
huge
is, it's a
difference.
lot less equipment.
Yeah.
And no swings, I mean.
No, I know.
They couldn't fit that they, put that in there, so.
So what issues could we contemplate by moving forward?
Yeah,
Just always trying to anticipate, is
I-
there anything?
I think that the regular things about, I
how
mean,
come
we have
setting
roads to
that much
fix. How
money
are we
out
gonna
for-
buy playground equipment too? It's gonna be stuff like that, but,
Right, But is there anything we can do to mitigate that? Is all I'm, trying to get us to think about.
I think
Because
that,
it seems like it'll be pretty fast, that we're asking for council approval. And knowing our community, they'll be like.
Yeah.
There's
I
reasons
mean,
they
I'm
go
not
walk.
trying to be.
yeah,
I mean,
Yeah,
there's
no,
reasons
I agree.
people.
And we didn't do this on purpose, of course. I mean, we've been working our tails off,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
there now is all of a sudden a 1-month deadline for this huge grant that makes this doable, I think.
And why are they putting that deadline?
I think
That's
it's
the
always
grant deadline.
That's their
Deadline's
company
out there.
deadline. We just happen to.
Like any grant has a deadline. They
Right,
don't say for
that's-
you.
Is that a company discount or is that?
No,
it's a grant.
From Game Time.
From who?
Game Time, who makes the
Maker.
equipment. That's who, Sinclair uses as the Game Time equipment.
The manufacturer of the equipment, and so we have to fill out an application for the grant specific to that company. Versus
That's who they use.
Sinclair, which is the local company that we've been designing through.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
I do, but I don't know, to me, grants is more like a discount. That they're-
They call it a grant.
We can argue all we want. This is just their.
Yeah.
that's their
deadline.
timing, yeah.
This is what they want. It kind of makes us move faster too.
Right. but
And
I-
at this point, there's nothing that's been done like, oh, we have to move fast. There's no corners that have been cut. 4 vendors have been explored, right? Which is more than you can ever expect
you
for
guys have been
anything
working
like this. Yeah.
extremely good.
4 vendors have been explored. This has been going on for nearly a year.
Here.
It's just, now it's come to fruition. It's time to present it. There's nothing rushed about it. I mean, yes, the 10/27 is a deadline that we want to meet, but there's been no rush to get there. The work has been done for a year. The work is complete. It's time to pull the trigger.
Presentation and
Yes.
approval. Amazing.
That's where we're at.
No, it is.
Anything else?
That's it.
Can we get a motion to take this to the next level?
I motion to take this to the next level.
We need something a little more specific. I think member DeYoung, do you have something that's written for, or something put together?
Well,
Basically, a motion to demolish the current, or
Yes.
decommission the current playground and
And-
take a proposal, a vendor proposal to
to
city.
council, and I think we just select one here and move forward
we
with
do
just the
Simmons.
Sinclair.
Yeah,
versus
so.
the-
It's just not even
Madam
back
Chair.
and forth.
Yes, I'm sorry,
Yeah, no worries.
Mr. Manager.
So, the motion from Ms. Johnson
Oh, it's,
fails because of a lack of a second. So now we need a new motion.
Okay.
With listing the vendor and the costs. And you don't even actually have to put in the grant opportunities, but you can if you'd like. It's up to you.
Okay.
Just vendor and the cost.
Okay, did you want to?
no, you go, no, you go for it.
I motion that we bring to council that the current playground be decommissioned, ASAP. Or when, Public Works has time, and that we move forward with, accepting the renderings and, cost quote from Sinclair.
Can I get a second? Motion DeYoung, second Kimball. All in favor? Is it a roll call or voice vote?
It's a roll call for.
All
just
in-
the fun of it.
Okay,
Um,
Roll call.
Yes.
Yes.
motion carries. Wonderful work. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank
That's
you.
Awesome.
That's
Good job, guys.
seriously.
Lot of-
I am like,
Lot of work right there.
no, the work's not done. We got, now the trek begins, but yeah, it's gonna be amazing. Thank you. So that's outstanding. And now we have Scott's sign. So we're on to Park Street and Mount Baldy improvements. Ruth, do you have any updates on the Park Street? I don't think you guys have met.
No, we haven't.
Incredible.
Well, there's really no reason to meet, other than I was gonna say we got the sign, which is good, and I also wanted to bring up McMaster's that we would like to go on the north side of Park Street, but I think that's gonna entail maybe a whole different group too,
Okay,
so. So thanks for being here, Nick, wherever he is.
okay.
I did have a question. So the burying of the lines on the Park Street side, is that something that we need to be versed in?
Yeah, what is that? I've
And,
never
um,
heard that.
And if we were gonna do some type of path modality over there, how do we work with them and make sure that we're set and we have things ready for that? Because I feel like that's a real opportunity for solving some of the safety issues over there.
So what we're talking about is that Consumers Energy had informed me that they were going to start burying their power lines on Park Street. Which would also mean telecom, telecommunications, anything that's up on their power poles or telephone poles would also have to be dropped into the ground. I did reach out to Consumers to get an update on that. I have not heard back from them, so I will do another follow-up. It's a little premature. I didn't get a schedule. I didn't get a timeline on when they would start doing this work. So let me follow up with them again, and then I'll get back to you at the next.
So my understanding is that there's not gonna be any changing on the street. that
Correct.
They're gonna bury it. Okay,
They're just gonna bury it. They're not gonna, it's not gonna affect the alignment of the road in any way. If that was your question.
But what about the ditches and the easements there?
They're just gonna have to use the existing right of way, their utility easements, and they're just gonna bury them where they have current access.
Where the lines are right now?
Yeah, typically, yep. But, they may run into issues with, the road alignment, not actually having utility easement with the road alignment. So we may run into some scenarios where we'll have to work with them to either put in what they would call a permanent limited easement, which just means that, that they have the ability to bury their utilities in that area and then just gain access to that property. It's pretty technical and boring stuff, I know.
Okay. So do we see this as an opportunity for putting in some pathway, or am I looking at it incorrectly? And would we need to potentially talk with them ahead of time so that our group can have an understanding of like what we need to think about, make decisions on prior to this work happening?
I think my best response is that I don't know enough about their project and their project scope to answer that intelligently at this
Okay.
point, yeah.
Okay.
But I think there's something in there,
Yeah,
some type of opportunity, I just don't know what it is yet.
yeah. I would just hate to miss out considering that, Bruce Group has done a lot of work, and that's a big sore spot for us. as
But
far
the
as-
whole walkway thing is a sore spot, so we'd have to be real careful with that too,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not an easy group over there and how, I mean, seriously, and if,
Mm.
it'd be almost kind of nice to see what they are physically gonna do.
Mhm.
And how that, if we did a walkway, how it could work with that. I don't want them just to go bailing down the street and digging the hole and putting those things in. It's a pretty,
Yeah.
I mean, that's a dune over there.
Yeah, yeah,
This-
go ahead.
Yeah, so it's different.
Yeah, as a utility company, they have to go through the same painful process
Yeah.
that we do with our critical dunes.
Sure.
Yeah, all the easements have to be in place, the permitting, et cetera. But they do, they're, as Scott Herbert and I can attest to, they're a pretty autonomous group in that they have their own rights and authorities. So they just kind of do what they have to do, without necessarily approaching the city, as we know, just as a prime example, tree trimming and or removal of trees.
And so again, I have to keep saying that the big issue is the speed on that street, and we had talked about doing some stops and some three-way stops and stuff like that. What do we do to get moving on that?
Where did we last leave that? Did we make a
I mean,
recommendation?
we have to work
council?
with, I don't think we have done anything.
I don't
with
think there was a
that.
recommendation.
I think that's the next step with those, yeah, you had some low hanging fruit with like stop signs.
We talked about three-way stops at
Two three-way
Campbell
stops
and
and-
Ferry,
right.
and then at, Perryman and, Park.
Park, right.
Somebody has to remember to put that on your agenda for your next meeting to
Okay.
make a recommendation.
I can remember to do that.
Thank
I'm
you.
making a note as well.
Okay.
That's the next step.
That's
is-
the next step.
Yeah,
That we start slowing people down. That's one of the big things we need to do.
And those are the two key areas. I think everybody
Yeah,
firmly
yeah.
agrees on that. So yeah, that'd be great to get that in motion.
Thank you.
Okay. And so on last Thursday, the Tri-Community Parks and Recreation Master Plan was presented to the public at a public forum at the Saugatuck Douglas Library. And member DeYoung went in my place, for which I'm very grateful. I believe you attended as well. And I think she has a brief update on how that went. Would like to
Yes.
share?
Yes, I do. There were 4 tables set up, one for each of the entities involved in the 5-year Parks and Rec plan. So the township, Douglas, us, and the school district. It was very well attended, and I actually think I talked to people that whole 2 hours. Very challenging for an introvert. Went home and had a beer. But.
I'm glad he doesn't drink.
So, I think I sat down and placed them into categories this morning. We need to emphasize stewardship as much as recreation, because there seemed to be a lot of emphasis on the recreation part of it. But we do have a lot of, assets already that we need to pay attention to. Some of the examples were the Saugatuck Harbor Natural Area. Spent a lot of money, wasn't it $20 million or something to acquire that? And now, it just seems to be being taken over by invasives, I heard, especially, barberry. So we need some treatment or looking at what's happening there. We need more signage to stay on the trails and stay off the critical dune parts. Talked about leave no trace, if anybody's familiar with that. We need stronger designations, and I know nothing about this, so I wrote down a lot of notes, like for instance, Talmadge Wood, I guess could be designated. There's different designations, and I don't know who anoints these or whatever it is, but you can have natural rivers, you can have environmental areas, cultural landscapes that do add some amount of protections in different ways. So I don't know who looks more into that, but I thought it was a great suggestion, because once you have a designation, it does add protections when people try to do things that we don't want.
Can I just,
Mhm.
I mean, I think that's a great idea, and I'm wondering, would that apply to the airport property?
Yeah, yep. And maybe that gets into the larger issue of what Ruth was here talking to us last time about, from the Land Conservancy, so.
Thornton, not Johnson.
No, I know.
Figured
that much.
There still seems to be some itchiness about when the Land Conservancy sprayed for something and killed a bunch of trees there. And they want the Land Conservancy to replant the trees. talk to Lake Town Township, just because what we do with the marine area in there affects what happens north of us. You know, especially the Burkholz Preserve and State Park. Include tribal nations. Because there were 3 in the area, apparently. I don't know as much about that maybe as I would like to. But even as we talk about conservation and things like that. Consider a land acquisition tax similar to, I guess we have a fire tax, so it could be an additional tax. I guess the township has called it just their Parks and Rec millage. So we can start having money for land acquisition. And I'll have something more to say on that in the closing comments, but it wasn't related to Thursday. The airport property, a lot of discussion around that. There was much concern about disturbing the area, but there did seem to be support for opening existing trails. Even the people that were very concerned seemed to be okay with that. Spent a lot of time talking to Ken Butler and Jim Searing, who are on the Township Parks Commission. And they really are interested, you know, they're opening up their dog park trails and, it sounds like the cross-country team is gonna hold first meet there. Yeah, and go a couple rounds, because it's not big enough. But started talking about how we might integrate the airport property, but I also kind of pivoted and started talking about the landfill property, because apparently that's available now and you know, doesn't have anything noxious there that we have to be concerned about. So then they started talking about maybe having the cross-country trail go around that area, which I think would be a way better idea, which still be accommodating, but it wouldn't be in the airport property itself, personally. Some guy from a mountain biking association, MEMBA, was there, which I love, you know, they're paying attention and but he would like some trails opened up for mountain biking. Again, I kind of was steering them away from the airport property, but that landfill property might be a good spot for that. And so he was shaking his head, yes, but what I found out is they actually raise dollars and they'll pay to develop bike trails locally, so it could be a source of funding for that. We decided to do it. And then a couple other miscellaneous things, wheelchair access to Oval Beach. And then like a local evergreen commons. So before we have a building, which they know might be way in the future, couldn't we just utilize the school, existing school and some things there for more after school or after hours programs, especially for adults? And it was mentioned things like square dancing and those kind of things. Yeah.
Square dancing I did in 2nd grade. I don't think I've done that as an adult, but that's interesting.
Yes.
Well, thank you, Member DeYoung. I think we have a lot of next steps when I talk about review next steps. Obviously, we're talking about the 3-way stops. Got to get this taken to council workshop. I'm excited for our next steps. So we'll make sure that we get that scheduled appropriately. At this point, I'm going to open it up to public comment. Mr. Clark, please approach the podium. Limit your comments to 3 minutes, sir, and state your address if you would.
Yes, I'm Chris Clark from Saugatuck Township. I live at the corner of 63rd and 126th, out in the country. I wanted to share 2 things. One for Glenna and Kelly. I've been very active recently with the History Center, and the signs you're talking about, it's a program they have called History Lives Here. I'm sure that Ryan is very familiar with it. I think it would be very cool if you could explore the idea of having one of those that's aimed at a younger audience, you know, bigger text, less words, and just contact Eric and get on there. And those are usually funded by donations, which I think you would have no trouble.
Yeah, that's a
Getting
great
it
idea.
funded.
Right.
Second thing, I hope that you will put on your agenda, or if it's not already, the idea of clearly designating and blessing the existing trails in Talmadge Woods and Mount Baldhead Park. I think right now there's very few that are official. Even the Crow's Nest Trail looks like it belongs to Oxbow, when in fact that property belongs to the city. So I think it would be great if the city could designate those trails, mark them, encourage people to stay on the trail so that the rest of the area doesn't get, you know, and there are lots of ways to do that politely. But if you go up particularly on the far side of Mount Baldhead, there are trails all over. And the other area is the Fishtown and the Water Tower area. There's trails all over there. And the more trails there are, the more land that gets messed up. So you want people to stay on the trails politely. And you have to have trails designated in order to do that. So it'd be great if you guys could put that on your agenda and start making that. And the sooner the better, I think. I'd be happy to help in any way I can. I've got tracks of all of those trails that I can share with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chris, it seems to me like you and I had already done some maps with potential names for those. at some point.
We also have Lisa Mize from CVB who would like to make public comment.
So now do I have to introduce myself because you just did?
Please do.
Lisa Mize, Executive Director of the Convention and Visitors Bureau in Saugatuck Douglas. I had the opportunity yesterday to meet with both Kelly and Glenna, and they gave me a sneak preview of their program for the park for Village Square. It's amazing. I love what you're doing. Thank you so much. Much needed, long overdue. I just want to say I support what they've done and kudos.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Lisa. Sarah, anyone online wishing to make public comment? We have Mr. Masters with his hand up.
Hey, Nick Masters, Holly Hill, co-owner GM. I just wanted to say I'm still around to help out in any way with this Park Street initiative, especially the bottleneck in front of our property there. And John Mock, Scott Herbert were kind enough to come today and take a look again. And all three of us expressed some real concern with the erosion that's happening underneath the street there, as well as the hillside. But yeah, that's going to take a lot of exploring and talking about and thinking going forward. But I just want to keep that on the radar for everybody and that we're here to help in any capacity from our end.
Thank you. Okay, well, that will close public comment. At this point, we'll go to member closing comments, and I'll start with Ms. Johnson, if you would.
First of all, thank you. I mean, that was a great presentation, a lot of hard work, and it's going to be really exciting to have something there for our kids and also our older kids too, because I know I love looking in and going through things like that too. So, and looking forward to working on that, the bike route, getting those designs done so we can keep moving forward with that. But I think it was well done, good meeting. And I'm with Nick Masters on that, but I think that's going to take a lot of time to revisit that, so.
Nancy?
Yeah, I would say I echo everything Ruth said. You guys were phenomenal.
Mhm.
So it's, I feel like we're really showing some results out of our group now, and that's thanks to you. And, I feel like hopefully soon we'll be, actually having some real results on the trail as far as, and I think I did forget to mention, Ryan kind of got at it with the trail that, we did ask C2AE if they could give us some actual renderings of what like the landscaping would look like and that kind of thing, with the goal as far as the sign of, we're not tearing the sign down, we're making it better. So hopefully, well, it's going to be even better, it's an awesome sign now that's going to be better.
Thank you.
Well, thanks fellow members for supporting this, and if you can foresee yourself coming to the next workshop and supporting it too. I unfortunately will be out of town. I just realized if it happens next Wednesday. So also wanted to say it's been great working with Kelly. We've had a lot of fun, even though it's been a lot of work. So, and we will continue. And Sarah's been wonderful with my last minute coming in with PowerPoints and things. So always good to work with. I'm going to say one thing about short-term rentals, but it doesn't really pertain to short-term rentals. It's a background to talk about conservation. So many of you know Joey Andrews is our new state rep from this area. After it was redistricted, we run from New Buffalo up through the Saugatuck, includes Douglas in the township. So everybody worked hard to get that done. He's the first Democrat that has served in 50 years, I think, from the west side of the state here. And as a friend of mine, he had a great session a couple weeks ago at the library where he did a town hall about short-term rentals. And he said when he was campaigning, he heard it all up and down the lakeshore. That was really the #1 concern. And so he took that on to as a project to work on. And he's pulling together a bill and working with some others on short-term rentals. And I think what they're doing is brilliant. And Lisa, you can comment at sometime later, I guess, about what your thoughts are, but they just want to put a box around it and leave control mostly to the local municipalities. but, and to help municipalities. So one thing they're doing, which I thought was brilliant, is if you go to another state and sometimes you go to a city, there's an additional sales tax. You can't do that here in Michigan. It's against the law. So that's why we can't collect any extra sales tax that's not already at the state law. So they are putting in there an extra amenity tax for short-term rentals. And part of that tax, I think it's very small, 1% or something, would go to create a statewide database where everybody has to register. So even if they're short-term and people aren't registered right now, they would force them to register. So now if you call to complain, the police have a database to go to, and if they're not registered, they have a reason to shut them down. Like right now, they really don't. But the exciting part, not that that's not exciting, is the other money goes back to the local communities, but it would go to the CBBs. And that they are working on the language of their charter, or I don't know what you call it, the purview of what they can do to expand it from just marketing local areas to also investing in housing for workers.
Hmm.
Did I say that right? Yes.
That'd be nice.
And so Joey was back in the area last Friday for a fundraiser, and I went to that meeting and asked him about if that money could also be interpreted as land conservancy also. So purchasing land that might be conserved. And I don't think he'd heard that idea because he went, I think a case could be made for that in the language. And I said, well, that's great. And then I said, could we make the language more explicit so we don't have to make the case and we'd just be able to do it? And so I need to follow up with him on that, but if anybody else thinks that's a good idea, that might be something to follow up with Joey on. Because I think that would be a good source of revenue, you know, for some of this land purchase that we're talking about.
Yeah,
So,
it's a good idea.
Wonderful. Thank you. Kelly?
Just thank you to everyone for your support and confidence in this, and thanks to Glenna. It has been a big project, but we really care about this. We really wanted this to be a unique and fun thing for locals and tourists alike. And so we really put a lot of thought and a lot of heart into it. And so we're just very excited to see this come to fruition, and then also for our group to have something like this move forward so that everyone else can see how great the dynamic is here and how well we're working together, and how much we care about the community to move things forward and make it better.
Thank you. Mr. Manager, any closing comments?
Thank you.
Okay. Can we have the survey for the tri-community sent out again for Saugatuck City?
Has it not been sent out?
I think it's sent out once. I've only seen it once, but I would
Oh,
love,
this is a reminder. Okay.
since we have till October 31st.
Yes, for anybody listening, we have until
love-
October 31st.
I would love to repeatedly send that. I've been getting it more from the township, and I'd love to see the city send it out more too, just because the more data we get, the better off we are.
Wonderful. Thank you. I want to close by thanking everybody for their hard work. Glenna and Kelly, it's been just incredible what you've been able to do in this period of time. And I know it's been a labor of love, but it's a lot of labor, and it doesn't go unnoticed. I want you to know that I very much appreciate that. I'm excited to take this to council, and I know that it's not going to be the easiest thing in the world, but it's worth it. And I think that Saugatuck's worth it, and I'm ready to make the case for this. And so welcome anybody else to attend that meeting on October 4th. So with that, can I get a motion to adjourn? Motion,
Second it.
DeYoung, second Roach. All in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Meeting adjourned.
Good job. I gotta run. Yes. Good job, everyone. I gotta run. Okay.